As the coup in the Republic of Niger continues to evolve, concerns around regional stability, border security, and the strengthening of democracy have also heightened in significant ways. While the coup plotters have agreed to talks with the leadership of ECOWAS, member states have been directed to activate standby forces. Beyond the Niger situation, what is the enormity of work leaders across the region need to do towards tightening border control? And whose primary role is it to man borders and ensure effective control? Customs, immigration, armed forces, or a combination of all? My guests will provide us answers to these questions when we return after this break. Hello and welcome to Big Talk on Global TV. We are in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. I'm joined by Dr. Hussaini Coomassie, International Peace Commission Ambassador and Head of Mission in Nigeria. It's always a delight to have you join us here on our programs.
Thank you very much.
Great. You and I spent the part of Friday discussing the Niger situation, and you gave very in-depth insights into all of the drama around it and what could be done by way of ultimately finding lasting peace. As of today, we understand the plotters, the coup plotters themselves have agreed to talks with ECOWAS, which is again a pointer to the issues you had raised a couple of days ago. While that is ongoing, we understand the standby forces are still being activated. But more importantly, the U.S. is saying that ECOWAS should put more pressure on the junta as we know it now. Isn't that some sort of distraction? Shouldn't we rather focus on the talks that we should be having rather than talking about pressure from the U.S.?
Well, thank you very much. As I said in the last interview, we don't need to join forces with U.S. or UK or whatever. ECOWAS is an African problem. Niger is part of the ECOWAS. And if U.S. want to come or want to intervene, they know how to mobilize their own allied forces as they did in Iraq and so on. So we don't need any American to tell us. We have our own way of handling our situation. When we did it in Liberia, U.S. did not tell us to do this or that. We did it in Sierra Leone, we succeeded in it. And ECOMOG, as it is called, are almost in everywhere in Africa, in West Africa. When they are called, they're just there. This issue of West Africa, or the issue of Nigeria in particular, is a very sad situation, because if you look at the nature of the peculiar nature of Niger, not financially all right. They are facing, if you go to Nigeria, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Coup shouldn't have been the solution to what they claimed the past or the immediate ousted president leadership has done in terms of corruption, whatever. All these are excuses from the military in order to be well received by the teeming citizens. But ECOWAS issue is diplomatic, not military force. The military should be on standby, yes. But diplomacy, I have said this thing time and time, diplomacy is the ultimate, and diplomacy is winning. Peace is winning. Now they have agreed for a dialogue. So let the government of Nigeria or Nigeria-led ECOWAS should look critically in areas they will come up with. In every military coup, the military, they are looking for, if you want them out, they are looking for soft landing, which way out. And till now, I don't think that side has been discussed. As a diplomat, I always want to be careful on how I comment. But issues like this, diplomacy, high-level diplomatic talks, supposed to be ongoing by now, especially now that they have opened the room for a dialogue. So I think it's a very straightforward something. We don't need America to tell us.
I'd like to add something to that quickly, because now we're hearing that the junta says it is already in the process of prosecuting the ousted president, who, by the way, is also in detention in his own residence. Won't that derail this intention to have talks?
It is too early to even discuss about prosecuting or whatever, because in the first place, they are not well accepted. So a matter of they will prosecute or they will probe where the ousted president has not arose, because the issue, they themselves are not justifiable to be able to prosecute who. Then they have National Assembly. Why shouldn't our military have, even though they want to intervene, made a lot of warnings? Why should they cease fire and tell us that who is corrupt, who is not corrupt? We don't accept military leadership, and we should stand against it. So for me, they should just drop that. If at all they want dialogue, they should please drop that idea of want to prosecute this. No, we are not after that. Let the democracy return to Niger. Let the military junta be given a way out, whether asylum, to go and let Niger be. That's my one.
I want us to also use this as an opportunity, because the Niger coup has raised so much of dust around several critical issues within the sub-region, including issues of security, with a particular concern regarding border security. At a point, sometime between 2012 and 2014, we're hearing that Nigeria had over 120 porous borders. Some people call it loose borders. Whatever that means, the concern here is, how do we further man our borders? Because this is very important for territorial concerns. But again, there's also the challenge of whose responsibility statutorily it is to man these borders.
Well, the first point is very clear. Yes, we need to man our borders very well. The 120 you said is just few borders identified. We have more than 300 borders, porous borders that if you go to the southern area, if you go to the core north, you'll understand there are borders that are not properly manned. People who can go in and come out without you knowing. I remember a case in Iduroko where the president of immigration, in fact, the second point of it is about immigration, or who actually is responsible for manning the border. Everybody knows in any part of the world, if you go, immigration is the first mirror of that country, and is the first mirror when you are coming in, and the last mirror when you are leaving that country. So the responsibility of manning the border is actually in the hands of immigration. Immigration owns the border. Any other security personnel should come after the immigration. The gate, the key to the border, should be in the hands of immigration. The act made it clear. The area of operation of each and every organization at the border, but the owners of the border, or the main in charge of the border, is immigration. Okay, if you want a proper manning of the border, first of all, I have repeated this thing time and time again. Immigration is, under budgeted, underfunded, short funded. Immigration need to be well equipped, because the border posts or for the operation bases created by Babandi-led administration, and the other area of strengthening the officers and men at the borders have been taken for granted with laxity. And if you don't equip immigration very well, you will continue having inflow of the bad eggs or bad persons. The movement of persons, they call it embarkation and disembarkation procedure. It's in the act of immigration. So when immigration is in charge, when custom is claiming to have closed the border and opened the border, I laughed at them, because they don't own the border. Custom are in charge. The main duty of custom is to take care of the goods, nothing more than the goods. They are not in charge of the human beings or the persons. The movement of the persons going in and coming out is solidly as immigration duties. It's at some, because of the bad leadership we are having, you will see some organization interfering with other organizational activities. It's not supposed to be so. Custom has no business with the border of any country. It is immigration.
This is interesting because I mean I'm a young man, but I know for a fact in my very lifetime how that every time a president in this country, not just President Bola Tinubu, would say, shut the borders, reopen the borders, the customs moving.
And it is not them.
You are saying that's an aberration?
No, completely. It's not their duty. When you are talking about, if the president is talking about goods going in and coming, okay, for instance, if you, let's assume that you are an immigration officer and custom, I'm in charge of goods, you are in charge of the human being. Okay, if custom owns the border, they should drop the goods, let the goods walk into the country. We are not challenging them on that. But immigration is in charge of the person, and it's the person that brings in the goods.
Right.
So when you block the person from coming in, the goods cannot come. It's a very simple arithmetic. Who is in charge of the movement of persons, embarkation and disembarkation? It's immigration. Who is in charge of goods? It's custom. So who owns the gate? Immigration. The custom has no right to close the gate to stop any human being from coming in. They can close the gate not to allow goods to enter, and we can open it to ask everybody to enter, unless if there is a presidential pronouncement, as you rightly said. So anytime the president makes such pronouncement, custom rush into closing the gate. I laughed at them. It's not their duty. We are in charge. I mean, immigration are in charge. Why I use the word we, because I am an ex-personnel of the immigration. So I know what I'm talking about. Having served the immigration for 22 years, and I have undergone all the trainings that an officer, a full-fledged officer, should go in. And I knew where my area of jurisdiction as an immigration officer ends. So immigration, you hardly see immigration doing custom job in the border. You hardly see them doing NDLEA or whatever. But you see other agencies are hijacking immigration duties.
What makes immigration so attractive, if I may ask?
Because they cover a lot. Then most of these organizations have one particular point of operation. But immigration has it large. Human trafficking is there, border management is there, visa and residency is there, aliens control is there, passport operation, passport administration and control is there. So when you have a lot of directorate under immigration, what you need is how funded is immigration?
We're funding. If immigration were to be better funded, would that answer all these questions we're asking?
Yes, please. Because now, go to border areas, you will understand that the whole of Ilela border has only one hilux. Go to Jibia in Katsina, my state, you will understand that there is not even operational van. It's the same hilux used by the controller, area controller, is the same vehicle they use in operation. So most of the forward operation bases, some of them have one, two vehicles. Manning international borders, it requires more operational gadgets. Not just the vehicles. You need high terrain vehicles. Not only that, you need some operational gadgets to communicate. In fact, immigration needs to have at least a very sound helicopter to go on border surveillance. All these areas, immigration, is it that the leadership is not making budget to the presidency or not? So this is the time, my own point, the first point will come in. Immigration reform and immigration autonomy. Whenever you reform the organization and it is standing on its own like any other organization of that nature, go to Europe and see how powerful, how strong immigration is. Because the country, or all these advanced countries, understand that the border areas are more sensitive in the area of operation than even the inland.
We're going to take a quick break now, but before that, I want to ask you this. We keep hearing of stories about conflict within the immigration, the top echelon of the immigration. We keep hearing about a lot of back and forth, rifts and bickering. Isn't that also having adverse impacts on the operational capacity of the service itself?
Well, that's what you hear from outside, but to the best of my knowledge, the internal operation of immigration is still intact. What we are having, the problem we are having is leadership. As immigration is now, immigration has no substantive controller general. The woman that has been appointed, the next in the hierarchy, took over. she's still on acting capacity. Two things are involved. It's either if you know she's well, trained or well equipped or has the leadership quality, confirm her, let us have the remaining tenure till the end of the organization. If she does not have, appoint a substantive. So two things are involved, as I kept on saying. She has been appointed on acting capacity, yes. Confirm her or let her go. One of the two things. Because now, the service for some time has not gotten, apart from Babandede, before Babandede, we have short terms. Uzoma, 2 years. RB Musa, 6 months. Paradank, 2 years. Abeshi, 1 year. We don't need sit down small kind of leadership. That's why other agencies are far advanced than immigration. Because the rest, you see, Commandant General of the Civil Defense spent 5 years on the throne. A custom CG and the Civil Defense, 1 CG witnessed 4 immigration CGs. So where are we heading to? So there is a need for the presidency to look into deep. If you are giving somebody on acting capacity, even though the person is retired, appoint that person on substantive CG base level.
So that they can settle into the role.
Yes, and give the person enough duration, not 3 months. If you are giving the person 4 years or 3 years, let the person be there. And this is the area my own idea of bringing a CG from outside comes in. But immigration officer may get, other officers may quote me wrong. That according to the act, appoint immigration CG among the serving personnel. Yes, but the presidential power supersedes some of this act. When there is crisis in an organization, the president can use his own prerogative to make appointment based on as an administrator, based on reform basis. Because now, if you look at after Adepoju, for instance, who is coming on board, the person there is, I think, DCG Dora or someone, and this woman does not have more than 1 year. After her, all the 13 ACGs you have, assistant controller generals, nobody has up to 2 years to serve. Then, if you are to bring from the controller, even most of these controllers, except few, have less than 2-3 years. And immigration need a substantive. Why Babandede succeeded? Because he had 5 years. Ude had 5 years. So they did wonderfully under their 5 years, even though there are some loopholes here and there, which is inevitable. We are human beings, you are bound to make errors. But from the appointment of Uzoma to Abechi, 4 controller generals, all with short terms. So now you are wasting public funds. 2, the service is going backward because the moment you appoint a new controller general, he will collapse the structure of the...
And start from scratch.
Yes, start from scratch. So we are going nowhere, making no move.
We need to take a quick break here, everyone. When we return, I'll talk more with Ambassador Dr. Coomassie on this same issue. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. When President Tinubu was sworn in, I mean, just a few days after he got sworn in, one of the first things he did was to visit the chief of, he met with the service chiefs, but more importantly, he spoke with the National Security Advisor, as it then was, Babangida Mongono, retired, and he said, look, the armed forces, whether it's the Army, the Air Force, and of course the Navy, have to have interagency collaboration because it has to be about Nigeria, it has to be about patriotism. We see so much of partition amongst military entities, paramilitary entities, the immigration, the customs, and so on and so forth. How do we have that sort of synergy where everybody understands where their role starts and ends, and they also know where to have a handshake when and where necessary?
Good question. You are hitting the point now. In 1980, 89, 90, there was something called Custom Immigration Joint Border Patrol. It was introduced, well funded by the federal government, and their budget was even separate budget, because that was when this G-Wagon of 18 was brought into Nigeria, a special spec. During the Shagaya regime, he brought in 200 Peugeot cars, 41 Land Rovers, and 60 Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon with helicopters and Dornier aircraft for only border management. And I can attest to that because I was a PA to the controller of Kano State when Kano and Jigawa were merged together. So, and we toured the entire northern border with the minister. The governors of Niger and the 4 governors of Borno, Kano, then Katsina and Sokoto met in Bagauda Lake Hotel, discussed. We went to witness where the demarcation, end-to-end demarcation was. And they came out with communique. And the advice given to the government, they put it in place. And I knew what achievement the two bodies matched together for border management achieved. This is what is needed. Immigration, custom joint patrol, or it can be like this. Since internal security is in the hands of the police, make it either immigration police joint patrol, immigration custom joint patrol, or the trio, immigration, customs, and the police joint patrol. It will be effective. But before then, let the border management, the border patrol, be controlled by the presidency. Because as far as it is under Ministry of Interior, we will achieve no goals. Because the problem we are having in the immigration is not actually from the immigration high command, but the interference of the Ministry of Interior has created a lot of setbacks for the organization. If you watch now, Custom under Finance are doing wonderfully well, because they have, it's like they are the lone paramilitary under Finance. Not only that, the civil defense under Interior, but because the civil defense boss refused to succumb fully with the way and manner the ministry is twisting them. They got their own freedom kind of, because appointment was being made by the president as substantive controller general. But this appointment of acting capacity being made by the Interior Ministry or Board of Civil Defense, Fire, Immigration, Correctional Services Board, as far as the ministry continue giving that appointment on acting capacity basis, they control you.
But is the president who ratifies that appointment or that recommendation?
Yet, the president is yet to confirm the controller general or appoint her as substantive controller general. For now, Mrs. Adepoju as acting controller general was appointed by the Ministry of Interior, because the next in the hierarchy take over from the retiring controller general, and the person of J. So when Jerry was leaving, she was the next in the hierarchy, even though she had barely less than 24 hours to retire. But they went ahead and appointed her, extended her tenure for 3 months, which she has spent almost 2 months now, 1 month to go. But my own take is this: if Adepoju today leaves, the next person, the lady that is to take over, the most senior, in fact, the only deputy controller, this is another problem. Immigration have 8 directorates, yet only 1 deputy controller general is substantive. The rest are assistant controller generals on acting capacity, or holding brief for the DCGs. In the absence of DCGs, the acting ACGs are now in charge of the directorate. Some directorates have even controller in charge of it, which is very wrong. We have never gotten it so bad like this. Why? The previous leadership, under the leadership of His Excellency Aregbesola, they made something that officers were not promoted to the rank of Deputy Controller General. Some were stagnated. Until he left office, the board under him did not promote enough Deputy Controller Generals. So that created that vacuum. You cannot operate a directorate very well with somebody himself acting. He is supposed to be number 2 person, now he's acting as in charge. Then the CG is also acting. So 7 directorate is being headed by acting Deputy Controller Generals.
And that's a setback for the service.
Big setbacks. Because they don't have maximum power to execute. The CG herself is being controlled now by the Interior Ministry and the board, because she has no maximum power. So without presidential input, she will still be controlled by them. So what we are pleading with the president is that for peace to reign or for development to come into that service, he should either confirm Adepoju and give her enough room to serve, or appoint a substantive CG with enough years of service to serve, at least 3 years to serve with him for the rest of his 3 years, 8 months. So with that, you can be able to get it right. Even with this, we can chip in some advice to see how it can be handled. Now we have emergency at hand.
Right.
In Niger is under military rule, and now there is tendency of ECOWAS being involved in the affairs of the Niger as it stands now. The forces of the ECOMOG sources are on standby waiting for the next line of action. Even though the junta agreed to go into dialogue with the ECOWAS, but it has not ended there. It will not end there. The issue on ground is not appointing a former finance minister to head. No. When are the military leaving? We want them to leave. When is democratically elected government coming in place? Not somebody, because if a military appoints somebody as a prime minister, it's the same military, because the junta is still in charge. The constitution is hereby suspended. So they are still not making any headway. Why we care much about the Niger issue is that we are trying to stop it from there. Because it started like a joke. Guinea, the ADC to the president, toppled him. So followed by Burkina, Mali, and now Niger, the brigade or head of brigade of guard seized power. So it's more or less kidnapping the president and forcing the service chiefs to comply. Because not chief of army staff is in charge. The brigade of guard is in charge. Not chief of army staff in charge of Guinea. It's ADC to the president that is in charge. So who knows whether next time another country in ECOWAS, oddly to the president, may decide to kidnap the president and declare. So we must stop it from there. That is the love we can show to Niger. Right. It's not that we hate. People misunderstood the whole issue. We are not fighting Niger. We are trying to bring sanity to Niger so that Nigeria will be prevented from the inflow of those running away from in case of any eventuality in Niger. Because when it happens in Niger, people will now be running into Nigeria and to increase our attention, because they are, how do I call it, under, let me use the word, radicalism, military radicalism. As it stands right now. As it stands now. So if pressure is mounted on them by the ECOWAS, what happens? They will start fleeing to Nigeria through these porous and again that will worsen the insecurity challenge that we're dealing with as a country. You and I have the record that arms, how many arms have been intercepted by the customs, by the police, by the military along these borders. And all this Libya episode should be a lesson to us. And I hope we learn that valuable lesson. If they use Niger as a transit camp to bring any weapons in Nigeria, now Niger is directly involved. So the military, the weapons will flow into Nigeria so easily. I can imagine, because of the proximity between both countries and the access they have back and forth. I'm afraid every time I talk to you, there's so much insights to share on the program here. I've been talking with Dr. Hussaini Coomassie, International Peace Commission Ambassador and head
of mission in Nigeria. Thank you so much for the time you spent with us on the program today. And that's what we're leaving it, everyone. We're back tomorrow with another very interesting and incisive conversation here on Big Talk. Enjoy the rest of your evening.